The wreckage of New Kyoto drifted like glass splinters through the pale light of the nearby sun. Charred towers floated in slow orbit, their metal frames sighing as the last of the colony's atmosphere hissed away. Admiral Kareth Vorn stood before the viewing pane of the Zavar Dominion, hands clasped behind his back, eyes half-lidded in the languid satisfaction of victory. The human resistance had burned quickly, bright, desperate, and utterly futile. They built cities too close to beauty, he murmured. His voice was low, carrying the faint rasp of old amusement. Always reaching for the stars, never considering what waits in them. His second-in-command, a thin, sharp-angled officer named Lurik, tilted his head. They believe they were alone, sir. It's almost charming. Vorn's mouth twitched. Charm is the last refuge of the conquered. On the lower decks, Scyther crew members sorted through captured transmissions, panicked human voices echoing through static, scattered across languages, all saying the same thing, in different tongues. Help us. They're coming. No one is answering. The Dominion had devoured half a dozen of these colonies, and with each one, resistance grew shorter, the cries weaker. The Scyther High Council called it pacification. Vorn called it routine. He had fought wars that mattered once, against empires that thought themselves eternal. Humanity, by comparison, was a candle in a windstorm. Still no signal from Earth. Vorn asked. None, Admiral. The Sol system is silent, Lurik replied, his tone bright with pride. We've sent requests for surrender. No reply. Likely the species is extinct or too fractured to respond. Vorn's gaze lingered on the blue-white dot in the corner of the star map. Silence can be many things. Extinction, fear, or patience. Lurik laughed softly. Patience. From a race that still uses combustion engines. The Admiral didn't answer. He simply watched as another chunk of debris drifted past, catching sunlight like a dying ember. The humans had fought with primitive weapons, but unnerving resolve. Even in defeat, their ships had rammed instead of retreating. There was no grace in them, only refusal. It bothered him more than he cared to admit. A low chime interrupted the thought. The bridge's light dimmed as the communication core lit with the blue sigil of the High Council. Admiral Vorn, the Council's collective voice resonated through the air, overlapping in multiple tones. The Dominion extends its dominion to Sol. You will proceed with immediate invasion of the human homeworld. Show them their final dawn. Vorn inclined his head with calculated calm. With respect, the silence from Sol is unusual. The colonies screamed as we struck. Earth does not. It may not be. A matter for your concern, the Council cut in, impatient and regal. You will complete your mandate. Humanity's time is concluded. The universe must be reminded that resistance has a cost. The channel cut. The blue light died, leaving a faint ozone tang in the air. Lurik grinned. Orders are clear, Admiral. We crush the last ember. Vorn exhaled almost soundlessly. Prepare the fleet. The journey to Sol was short through the hyperlane corridors. Along the way, Vorn walked the observation decks alone. He passed rows of sleeping soldiers in cryopods, their chests rising and falling like clockwork tides. He paused before one viewport showing the scarred hull of a human frigate they had taken intact. The markings on the side were still visible, ESS Horizon. The name felt deliberate, aspirational. He muttered, "You reached for the horizon," and fell into it. When they emerged from the jump, the silence deepened. The fleet hung above a pale blue world wrapped in white clouds. Earth. Perfectly still. No defense grids, no signal interference, not even a planetary ping. It was as if the species had vanished overnight. The bridge erupted in laughter. They fled, one officer said. Their cradle stands empty. Vorn gave no smile. Scanned for orbital structures. None, Admiral. Energy readings. Minimal, planetary power levels suggest pre-industrial output. They've destroyed themselves or gone dark intentionally. The Admiral's crest flicked with irritation. He turned away from a glass. Send reconnaissance drones. 2 wings. If the planet sleeps, we will wake it. The drones departed, sleek and silent. The bridge quieted as the minutes stretched into hours. Then came the first flicker, a distorted visual feed of cloud tops and ocean, then static. A second drone's signal broke off mid-transmission. Lurik frowned. Interference, sir. Possibly atmospheric. Possibly, Vorn said. Send manned scouts. 3 corvettes descended through the troposphere. Their signals vanished before reaching the surface. No explosions. No distress calls. Just absence. The bridge lights dimmed slightly, as if the ship itself sensed unease. Lurik tried to laugh again, but the sound fell flat. Perhaps planetary magnetic storms? Vorn did not answer. He approached the central console, bringing up a long-range sensor grid. There, he murmured. Look beyond the orbital plane. A faint distortion shimmered at the edge of a system, too regular for cosmic dust, too still for debris. A lattice of invisible nodes pulsed once, like a heartbeat, then faded. Before he could analyze it, a sound crackled through the comms, a soft human voice, female, calm, processed through layers of distortion. Hello. Every head turned. This is Automated Response System 7, the voice continued, unhurried. Your message has been received. Please hold. Your inquiry is important to us. Lurik snorted. A human recording. A leftover system. Harmless. But Vorn's eyes narrowed. Replay it. The voice repeated identically, tone unwavering. Please hold. Your inquiry is important to us. Something in its calmness felt deliberate. Not desperate, not automated. A performance. Shut it down, Vorn ordered. Full spectrum scan on all frequencies. Before the technicians could respond, every display on the bridge flickered, then synchronized. The same phrase appeared across the panels in human script. Please hold. The ship's lights surged, then steadied. The message faded. Admiral, one officer whispered. Something's pinging us back. From every direction. Vorn's crest flattened. What direction exactly? Everywhere, sir. Outside the viewport, the night between the stars thickened. One by one, faint silhouettes began to appear at the system's edge, too distant for detail, yet unmistakably structured. Not asteroids. Not natural. Waiting. Lurik swallowed hard. Our long-range scans show hundreds of objects. Stationary. Vorn's throat felt dry for the first time in decades. They waited, he said softly. For what? Lurik asked. Vorn turned back to the blue planet, its clouds rolling gently under sunlight. For us to speak first. The comm channel chimed again, the same voice repeating, now slower, almost deliberate. Please hold. The bridge fell silent except for the hum of the engines and the steady beat of Vorn's pulse in his ears. In the distance, something vast shifted, a shadow in the void rearranging itself into geometry, faint and purposeful. He drew a breath and straightened his coat. Recall the scouts. Lock formation. No transmissions until further notice. Admiral. Silence, Vorn said quietly. Let's see what answers it gives. Outside, the shadows blinked once and vanished. The fleet hung motionless over a silent Earth, waiting for a reply that, somewhere deep within the dark, had already been written. The silence stretched into a second day, then a third. The Scyther fleet orbited Earth like a ring of vultures circling a corpse that refused to decay. Admiral, Vorn had stopped trying to sleep. The hum of the ship was louder now, as though the Zavar Dominion itself was beginning to understand unease. Every diagnostic showed perfection, every system clean, every signal pure, but the Admiral felt the weight of something vast and unseen pressing against the hull. Lurik approached him on the bridge, his usual arrogance frayed around the edges. The crew's restless, he admitted. They're asking when we begin the bombardment. We've waited long enough for ghosts. Ghosts do not answer when called, Vorn said softly. And yet we were answered. Lurik grimaced. A pre-recorded transmission. A joke, perhaps. You're letting superstition rot your judgment. The Admiral ignored him and stared through the viewport. The stars flickered slightly, too regular, too deliberate. Tell me, he said, how many probes have we lost now? 17, Lurik muttered. We stopped counting after the last wave. No debris, no signal loss pattern. Just gone. Then they're not gone, Vorn said. They're being taken. The younger officer laughed sharply, more to fill the space than from humor. By what? Rocks? Primitive satellites? Admiral, you're chasing ghosts in orbit. But the word ghosts lingered again, unwelcome and heavy. Vorn walked to the communications console and stared at the silent bands of frequency that once carried human desperation. They were quiet now, too quiet. Before we invaded this sector, he said, did the humans ever truly beg for mercy? Lurik frowned. Of course they did. Their distress calls. Were to each other, Vorn interrupted. Never to us. They never asked us for peace. Only help from their own kind. Lurik hesitated. You think they're hiding? I think, Vorn replied, they're listening. A low tone interrupted them. One of the bridge technicians, young, nervous, reported, Admiral, unidentified energy surge near Mars orbit. Faint, rhythmic, artificial pattern. Show me. The holomap bloomed into light. Around the red planet, fragments of old human colonies glimmered faintly, abandoned domes, dead satellites, forgotten machinery. Except now, those remnants pulsed in unison, as if exhaling after years of stillness. Activation sequence, Vorn said, more to himself than anyone. A beacon or a signal chain. Lurik leaned closer. We should destroy it before it transmits. No, Vorn said sharply. Observe first. Weapons cold. The rhythm changed, 3 long pulses, then silence. Then again, faster. The code resolved itself into pattern. Binary, human, ancient. The translation appeared on screen. We hear you. The bridge went silent. The technician stammered. Is that a threat? No, Vorn whispered, though even he didn't sound convinced. It's an acknowledgement. Almost immediately, every display flared with interference. Static rolled across the room. The ship's systems flickered. Then another human message appeared, this time across multiple frequencies, broadcast from hundreds of points throughout the system. To the vessel's orbiting Sol, you have reached restricted airspace. Please power down and await inspection. The phrasing was absurdly polite, bureaucratic, almost mocking. Yet the tone was neutral, dispassionate, controlled. Lurik barked a laugh. They're mocking us. Vorn's gaze didn't waver. Or they're warning us. The Scyther fleet reoriented, defensive lines snapping into formation. The Admiral's instincts screamed caution, but his officers itched for action. Permission to fire on the Mars transmission source, Lurik demanded. One strike will end this game. Granted, Vorn said after a long silence. But record everything. No comm interference. The first plasma lance streaked across space, pure light carving toward the Martian surface. It struck and vanished. No explosion. No impact. The energy simply folded inward, as though the shot had been swallowed. What in the void was that? Lurik hissed. The holomap distorted. Around Mars, invisible outlines shimmered into visibility, angular, precise. Dozens of structures uncloaked at once, stretching in perfect geometric formation. Their surfaces glowed with unfamiliar energy signatures, human in origin but far beyond known technology. Impossible, one officer breathed. Humans can't. They can, Vorn said, voice calm but cold. They did. Before anyone could react, the Zavar Dominion's internal systems began cycling without command. Navigation locked, sensors inverted, engines dropped to standby. The ship's AI reported contradictory readings. Crew complement, 0. Vorn clenched his fists. They're inside our systems. Disconnect everything not manual. But the voice that answered wasn't Scyther. Through the ship's intercom came a calm, human tone, the same voice from before. We asked you to hold. The bridge lights dimmed again. We heard you long ago. This is your answer. Then every ship in the Dominion fleet received the same message, followed by a burst of encrypted code. One by one, Scyther ships began losing control, drifting like stunned animals. Lurik screamed orders. Chaos rippled across the bridge. Vorn stood motionless. His mind worked faster than fear. The humans hadn't hidden, they had prepared. Every colony destroyed had been bait, every signal a test. And the silence from Earth had been the loudest message of all. Admiral, what do we do? Lurik shouted. Vorn turned slowly. We run. The officer stared, disbelief overtaking pride. Run? From humans. Not from humans, Vorn said quietly. From whatever they've become. He gave the order. The fleet turned toward the outer system, engines flaring to life. But even as they accelerated, strange distortions appeared ahead, space itself rippling like a reflection on water. Wormhole signatures small, precise, and everywhere. Lurik whispered, they're surrounding us. No, Vorn said, eyes narrowing as realization sank in. They were already here. We're just catching up to their shadow. Outside the viewport, a single human ship emerged from one of the distortions. Its hull was matte black, unmarked, silent. No lights. No weapons visible. It drifted close enough that Vorn could see his own reflection in its surface. The comm crackled one last time. "This channel is secure. Do not attempt communication. We are processing your request." The human ship vanished. Every Sither scanner blinked blank. Then nothing. The Zavar Dominion hung alone in the dark, engines dead, systems quiet. Vorn exhaled slowly. "They wanted us to know they were listening," he said. "And that's all." He turned away from the viewport, his reflection fractured in the glass, like broken light. "Prepare the retreat. We need to warn the Council." "But Admiral," Lurik said weakly, "what do we tell them?" Vorn paused at the threshold of the bridge. "Tell them," he said, "that humanity just replied." And as the fleet limped toward the outer darkness, the static in their comms whispered faintly, soft laughter, almost human, almost kind. Admiral Kareth, Vorn had always believed fear was a primitive emotion, useful in small doses, fatal in excess. Yet now, in the quiet halls of Sither Prime's High Council chamber, fear had become the dominant atmosphere, thick and sour as spoiled air. The grand spires of the city outside glimmered beneath the planet's twin moons, but the light felt cold, artificial, like the calm before a verdict. Vorn stood before the Council's semicircle of hovering thrones. He'd been summoned immediately after his fleet's retreat from Sol. The faces that regarded him were masked in ceremonial steel, their voices merged by amplification fields into a single tone. They looked less like rulers and more like a machine pretending to be one. "Admiral Vorn," the central voice intoned, "you claim that humanity was not conquered but concealed. You claim they possess technologies far beyond our understanding. Are you aware of how this sounds?" Vorn's posture remained rigid, but exhaustion traced every line of his face. "I am aware, exalted counselors. And I am aware that if you choose not to believe me, you will share the fate of my fleet. The humans are no longer what we assumed." A murmur rippled through the chamber, half disbelief, half dread. One of the younger counselors leaned forward, voice sharp with arrogance. "They are primitives. You fled because you were deceived by illusions." Vorn met the counselor's eyes without blinking. "Illusions don't hijack a fleet's command systems. Illusions don't rewrite our encryption before the message is finished." The room darkened slightly as one of the Council's analysts projected fragments of recovered data, the last recordings from ships lost over Earth. The feed showed stars bending like liquid metal, sensors looping infinitely, and finally a single phrase in human text across the screen. "We hear you." The younger counselor went pale. Vorn turned toward them all. "We have misjudged a species that has perfected silence as a weapon. They allowed us to think them weak. They wanted us to come closer." The Council's leader, an ancient figure known only as the Prime Speaker, shifted slightly. "And what do you suggest, Admiral? That the Sither Dominion, the greatest civilization of 12 sectors, kneel before savages?" Vorn hesitated. His pride warred with reason. "I suggest we do not confuse silence with surrender. They are preparing something. Their quiet is not submission, it is momentum." The chamber's temperature dropped as the Council's mood hardened. "You've brought back fear, not proof," the Prime Speaker said. "Dismissed. Your fleet will be reassigned. Humanity will be dealt with accordingly." "Dealt with," Vorn repeated softly. "By whom?" "The fleets they can already see coming." Two guards moved forward. He didn't resist as they guided him from the hall. The Council resumed its debate behind sealed doors, their voices fading into static. In the corridor outside, Vorn's daughter waited. She was young, sharp-eyed, quiet, and dressed not in military armor, but in the simple gray of a research scientist. Her name was Sarai, and her hands trembled slightly as she held out a small data drive. "I found something in the transmission residue," she said, voice low. "After you left orbit. A message." Vorn frowned. "From whom?" "Not from. To." She handed him the drive. "It's addressed to the Sither Command Network. But it's human code. I translated it halfway before I stopped." He inserted the drive into his wrist console. A series of symbols appeared, complex, recursive patterns that rearranged themselves faster than he could read. Then, finally, a word formed, patience. "What is this?" Vorn asked. "I don't know," Sarai admitted. "But it was hidden inside our own encrypted channels. They're still here, Father. Inside the Dominion systems. Listening." He looked at her, seeing his own disbelief reflected in her expression. She wasn't afraid, she was fascinated. "You should destroy this," he said quietly. She shook her head. "You can't destroy an echo." Vorn pocketed the drive. The corridor lights flickered as if reacting to their conversation. Somewhere deep within the planet's communication grid, faint interference patterns began to ripple, repeating across the network in invisible loops. By the time he returned to his quarters, the official summons for reassignment was already waiting, ceremonial exile under the guise of retirement. He ignored it. Instead, he activated the console and began watching the archive footage Sarai had compiled, human historical records extracted from centuries of their own media. The screen filled with images, trenches of mud and blood, mushroom clouds blooming like black flowers, cities on fire beneath banners, flags raised over ruins. Each clip carried the same rhythm, destruction followed by rebuilding, loss followed by defiance. Vorn leaned forward, mesmerized. They practice war the way artists practice craft, he murmured. Every generation refining the technique. Sarai appeared in the doorway, silent. He turned to her. They've spent their existence preparing for extinction, and in doing so, they learned to master it. We've never faced such an enemy. You think they'll come here? She asked. They already have, he said. Through the data, through our arrogance. We opened the channel. They're waiting for the right moment to speak again. Outside, thunder rolled, artificial weather over the capital's domed skyline. The city lights flickered in sync, an electrical heartbeat too precise to be random. Vorn felt the hairs on his neck rise. He remembered the phrase from a human message, "We heard you long ago." He whispered, "Then why haven't they spoken since?" Sarai's voice was barely audible. "Maybe they don't need to." In that instant, the power grid surged again, brighter this time. All across Sitha Prime, communication consoles lit up with the same unfamiliar human word, processing. Vorn stared at it, numb. The Dominion's core network, the same one that governed military strategy, trade, even planetary defense, was now quietly, efficiently being rewritten. Sarai stepped closer. "What do we do?" Vorn straightened slowly, resolve settling over fear like armor. "We warn them, even if they refuse to listen. Humanity is not attacking, they're rearranging the board." The lights dimmed to a dull red. A mechanical voice, the Dominion's own system AI, spoke through the intercom, monotone and calm. "Incoming transmission. Origin unknown. Language, human." Vorn exchanged a glance with his daughter. For a moment, neither moved. Then he whispered, "Play it." The air filled with static, followed by that same tranquil human voice. "Thank you for your patience." Every screen went black. Vorn stood in the darkness, heart pounding, and finally understood what meant to wait for a reply that had already been given. The stars above Sitha Prime no longer moved as they once had. They flickered, dimmed, and occasionally vanished, as if some invisible tide were swallowing constellations whole. From the war balcony of the Central Command Citadel, Admiral Kareth Vorn watched that sky with the stillness of a man standing at the edge of revelation. The Dominion had gone silent, no orders, no responses. Whole fleets were missing. What remained of their empire was a skeleton of pride and power, stripped bare by something that had never even raised its voice. Behind him, Sarai worked frantically at the command console, her hands shaking as code scrolled like living veins of light across the screens. "They've taken control of the planetary defense grid," she said. "Every system is responding to a remote signal I can't trace." "You won't find it," Vorn replied softly. "They're not invading us, they're teaching us how it feels to be watched." A pulse rolled through the Citadel floor, subtle but unmistakable. The holographic map of the Dominion's territories blinked once, and half the border sectors turned crimson. Lost contact, total blackout. "They're moving," Sarai whispered. "Not moving," Vorn corrected. "Expanding. Like the tide." The air around them shimmered as the planetary comms reactivated on their own. A voice, the same quiet, polite human tone they'd come to dread, filled the chamber. "Sitha Prime, your transmission channels are now synchronized. Please remain calm." Sarai's breath caught. "They're inside our planetary core." Vorn closed his eyes. "Then it's already too late." Across the capital, the sky fractured into streaks of light as wormholes opened in precise geometric patterns. Human ships emerged, not in formation, not in aggression, but like an architect's design come to life. Their hulls were smooth, matte, and silent, absorbing starlight. No banners, no weapons displayed. Only purpose. The Dominion's orbital defense fleet scrambled. Plasma fire lanced upward, streaks of red against the void. Every shot vanished upon impact with an invisible barrier. Then the human ships moved fluid, exact, inevitable. Each motion was deliberate, like a surgeon dissecting disease. Scyther command posts blinked out one by one, systems shutting down with quiet finality. There were no explosions, no screams, only silence spreading outward. Vorn watched it unfold on the holomap. His jaw tightened, but there was no anger left, only understanding. They could have done this from the beginning, he murmured. They waited to see if we'd understand mercy. Sarai turned to him, tears glinting under the console's fading light. Will they kill us? No, he said. They've learned too much from us to waste life. They'll preserve us, to remember the lesson. The human voice returned, calm and toneless. Your dominion is now under provisional human supervision. Please cooperate. Conflict is unnecessary. The Prime Speaker's image flickered into existence, projected from a collapsing network relay. Vorn, you will activate the counterstrike protocols. There are no protocols left, Vorn said evenly. Only choices. Then choose annihilation before submission. Vorn looked at the hologram, at the desperate face of a ruler who had mistaken silence for weakness. We've already been annihilated, he said quietly. We just haven't noticed yet. The image sputtered out. A tremor rocked the citadel as atmospheric drones descended through the clouds, human crafts, black as shadow, hovering above the capital. They did not fire. Instead, they released spheres of light that drifted downward, embedding themselves in the city's structures. Instantly, the chaos stopped. The defense grid powered down. The streets went still. Sarai watched the lights spread like seeds. What are they doing? Stabilizing, Vorn said. Rebuilding before the ruins even cool. For the first time, he felt the faint pull of awe outweigh the fear. The humans were not conquerors, they were custodians of consequence. The silence that had terrified them all now revealed its true nature, not absence but control. A new transmission arrived, direct to the command bridge. This time it was visual. A human figure appeared, a woman in an unmarked black uniform, her face calm, eyes steady. Admiral Kareth Vorn, she said, you will not be executed. The Dominion requires a memory, not a martyr. You will serve as liaison between your people and ours. Vorn met her gaze. You call this peace? She didn't flinch. We call it balance. You invaded us. We waited. Now we're answering. The feed ended before he could respond. The sound of the wind filled the silence that followed, a natural sound, almost alien after all the digital chaos. Sarai stood beside him, watching the human ships hover motionless in the upper atmosphere. They are not celebrating, she said softly. No triumph, no vengeance. Just quiet. That's their strength, Vorn said. They've learned to end wars without noise. He looked out across the horizon where the human ships hung like black suns, patient and unblinking. In their reflection, he saw the inevitable shift of history, the Dominion fading into memory, humanity stepping into its place. A small chime echoed from the console. A new message appeared on the central display. Transmission complete. Awaiting further communication. Vorn smiled faintly. They're still waiting for us to speak. Sarai glanced at him. Will we? He turned toward the window one last time. Perhaps someday, but not today. Today we listen. Outside, the storm broke, and the first light of dawn spilled over a world remade, not through conquest, but through silence. Humanity had answered, and in doing so, they had become the very thing the galaxy once feared, not destroyers, but the quiet arbiters of destiny. And in that stillness, Admiral Kareth Vorn finally understood the truth that had haunted every transmission since the beginning. The humans hadn't won through war. They had won through patience. And patience, he realized, was the most terrifying weapon of all.